Before you glaze a ceramic object, you must fire it once. This is called the bisque firing. After you've completed the first firing, you coat the ceramic object in glaze. Then you fire the object again.
A glaze is essentially a thin layer of glass which coats the outside of a clay object. It can be shiny or matte. It allows the object to hold water. Furthermore, it can be many different colors. These colors result from the combination of different elements in the glaze. For example, if you were to include the element cobalt in the glaze, it would most likely turn blue.
Ceramics have been around for over 10,000 years, yet only in the last 2,000 years glazes have been used. And only in the last 100 years the science and making of glazes has really been developed. This means that there's still a lot we don't know about glazes, which makes the art of ceramics so much fun. The Middle Eastern countries were probably the first ones to use glazes. The area had natural sodium and potassium compounds such as pearl and soda ash, which proved to be great for glazing pots. The Romans first used lead glazing, which was a mixture of lead oxide and sand. Lead glazing was very popular in ancient times, but more recently has become less popular because we know more about the toxic health effects. In Persia, around 1100 AD, tin glazing was very popular. This glazing style created an opaque white look similar to porcelain. Tin glaze was made from a mixture of kaolin and feldspar clays. During the Renaissance, alkaline glazing was especially popular. In Mesopotamia, this type of glazing was created with ash and sand, and in other parts, soda and sand was used. Alkaline glazing became less popular around the 1700s because enamel glazing, which used a much lower temperature, was invented. A huge breakthrough in the ceramic world was around 9000 BCE, when ceramic creations were being used to store things such as water, grains, fruit, and belongings. The potter's wheel was invented in 3500 BCE. The wheel allowed people to create pots that were perfectly round and symmetrical, allowing people to make better quality airtight containers. The first glazes were only able to be low-fired, meaning their glazes chipped easily, and this meant that they were mainly used for artistic purposes. This meant that another game changer in the ceramics world was high-fire kilns. High-fire kilns were first used in China. High firing a pot makes it much more durable and allows the glaze to stick better, not letting it chip as easily. Since World War I, humans have come up with some truly remarkable things for ceramics to be used for. We now know how to 3D print clay as well as make hyper-realistic bones out of ceramics.
There are three main components of glazes. These are silicon dioxide, aluminium dioxide, and fluxes. Silicon dioxide forms the main body of the glaze. Aluminium dioxide thickens the glaze, and fluxes lower the melting point of the mixture to the firing temperature of the clay. There are two types of firing, earthenware and stoneware. The main difference between the two is the firing temperature of the glazes. Earthenware has a lower firing temperature of 900 to 1100 degrees Celsius. Stoneware has a higher firing temperature of 1100 to 1300 degrees Celsius. The periodic table is very important to potters, especially when they are thinking about glazes. This photo shows the elements in the periodic table that are important to potters. Many metals in the periodic table have names that have the suffix -ium. These elements include sodium, calcium, and barium. When the oxides of these elements dissolve in water, they form alkaline solutions. This product is the main ingredient in clay and glazes. The central block of the periodic table is composed of the transition metals. These elements include iron, nickel, copper, and uranium. These elements have several oxidation states. This allows for the creation of colored glazes. Uranium is the heaviest naturally occurring element. It can produce a yellow color in glazes, but is no longer used due to the fact that it is radioactive. On the right-hand side of the table in a diagonal line is the metalloids. This line divides the metals and the nonmetals. Elements within this line include silicon and boron. These elements are fluxes, which are used to lower the melting point of the glaze. On the top right-hand corner of the periodic table are elements such as oxygen, the halogens, which include fluorine and chlorine, and the noble gases, which include helium and neon. Oxygen is an element that is present in all clay and glazes and is combined with silicon and aluminium to form oxides. The far left side of the periodic table is highly alkaline, whereas the far right side of the periodic table is highly acidic. Vitreous ceramic clay bodies are formed when alkaline and acidic oxides react together and melt. This causes a glass-like glaze appearance.
Ceramic glazes, as well as ceramics in general, have had an enormous impact on culture and society itself in places across the world. In China during the Yuan dynasty, which was around 1279 to 1368, porcelains with feldspathic glazes, similar to high-temperature stoneware glazes, inspired intersection between Eastern and Western culture. This was the time of Marco Polo, and a Western fascination with Chinese ceramics increased the trades and helped boost China's economy. Glazing is only one example of how the Chinese were much more technologically advanced than the Europeans. And the Western awe of this technological advancement sparked massive trade routes from the west to the east. These porcelains in China were often decorated with colorful designs and or pictures, and were worked with finely ground minerals that were suspended in water and a binding agent that was similar to glue. Painters would apply some color before firing, and then apply a clear glaze over them, which was called underglaze. Many of the more prestigious vases designs were made with a cobalt blue underglaze and would show a donor's wealth. In addition, the period of porcelain came after intense conflict and political upheaval among Hindus and Muslims, and symbolized peace through symbols such as yin and yang. Overall, ceramics induced large trade routes and therefore induced prosperity and wealth in China, and also symbolized peace. During the Archaic period in the 500s BCE in Greece, ceramic painting was the medium of a switch between abstract art and figurative art. In the Black Silhouette period, Greek artists would apply black silhouettes to a clay surface, and then used a pointed, sharp instrument to cut in more linear detail in the black glaze forms. They usually added in highlights in purplish red or white before firing the ceramics. This was the first figurative painting in Greece, which inspired later Greek art and Roman art, and would forever inspire artists across the globe. Finally, in 440 BCE, the Greeks figured out how to apply colored glazes after firing, because many colors could not withstand the kiln. This made even more colorful pieces and glazes, and inspired more color in Greek art. Greek ceramics were a catalyst for more figurative art in the future, and more colorful art. In Japan's 1500s, the values of art switched from being decorative to being functional. The catalyst for this switch were Shino ceramics. In Senno Riku ceramics, he was the most influential artist. He said that the value in refinement lay in the character and ability of tea items, whose value was in their inherent simple beauty rather than their worth in money. He introduced the concept of wabi, refined rusticity, to Japanese culture, and through this really emphasized competence rather than bloodline in Japanese society. He also introduced sabi, which was based on suggesting that tranquility reached in old age, and shows a respect for age and wisdom through ceramics. Through wabi and sabi, Rikyū created a whole new set of ideals and beauty standards in Japan, which were more focused around wisdom and simplicity rather than youth and flashiness. Over time, while Japanese ceramics became more simple and abstract in nature, China reveled in the complex designs that ceramic glazes allowed for. Ancient Greece actually used ceramics and glazes as a medium for painting, combining the two mediums together for archaic vases. Ceramic glazes impacted each culture in such a unique way and continues to do so in the modern world.